At about 14 years old, I left home. It wasn't safe for me there and lived on the streets for 4 years. During that time, I got by through survival economies. So selling drugs and doing sex work and panhandling. I even hula hooped on the street corner, sometimes with fire. I was living out of a backpack, sleeping outside under bridges, carried my sleeping bag with me everywhere I went, and all of my possessions were in one backpack. I was traveling a lot and hopping freight trains and hitchhiked across the country. And I was hoping that in every city I stopped in, I could use the library and be able to try to finish high school. Unfortunately, when you're not a resident and you don't have an address, you're only able to get a guest pass for the library for an hour at a time. And I just couldn't finish school like that. So I had to drop out. People won't look up and look at you. They purposely look away because they don't want to see, they don't want to face the reality. I didn't want to be a sad story. It was hula hooping in downtown Portland where I live. And someone approached me from an organization called the Circus Project, which they had a circus school program for homeless youth. They weren't direct services, but it gave me something to show up for, something to work towards. I realized that I can't do physical training if I don't have an indoor space to sleep in. I can't take care of my body if I don't have access to good food. Through this process, I wound up going into a shelter and then into transitional housing through an organization here. I got my first job, eventually wound up in my very first rental, so officially off the streets and out of services. I credit the Circus Project for a lot of that, not because they directly connected me to resources, that's not the kind of services they provided, but gave me something that I needed to take care of myself to be able to show up for. And they started having me tell their story and tell my story for donors. I was working with the event manager who was coaching me, and she told me if I can get myself to cry on stage while telling my story, people are 30% more likely to give. At the time, I felt really special. I would get placed at a table with the highest donors, and the executive director would be like, share your story with these donors. We really want them to give. See if you can motivate them to give. It's really weird to sit at a table with a bunch of rich strangers and this pressure to tell my story in the right way. If I don't engage them in a way that inspires them, we're not going to make our budget. I was basically working unpaid doing fundraising for the Circus Project. I was still in a poverty cycle, and I continued to live in survival economies. So it wasn't, I got off the streets and then everything was fine and my life turned around. While we were in the training company at Circus Project, there were documentary filmmakers who followed it all the way through to the final show. They wanted us to show them places where we had slept. They wanted us to talk a lot about our stories, and they were pulling my deepest insecurities out. All of the things that I had so much shame around before I was able to own the story for myself. We weren't given any media training. The video was supposed to be about Jen Cohen, the founder, and the Circus Project program. And it wound up being about 4 homeless kids because that's a compelling story. There's a moment where I'm like 18 and I have circus makeup on, and I'm talking about how even when I was living on the streets, I had a lot of dreams, having been a performer before, and wanted so much more for myself. And I looked at the camera and said,
I was just a deadbeat.
Watching that as an adult made my heart sink because I was 18 and viewed myself as just a deadbeat. But these were adults, and they should have protected me or encouraged me in this moment where I was thinking really low of myself. I wound up with 4 felonies that I still carry with me. When I wanted to work in nonprofits full time, I knew that background checks were going to be a thing, and you could easily Google my name and my mugshots would come up. So there was no hiding from that story. I have to be able to tell this story because people are going to find out anyways. And so that's when I started owning my own story. It turned out being able to share with nonprofits that I had been on the street, that I had been incarcerated, that I had been in survival economies made me a better hire. The skills I developed on the streets, being able to tell if somebody's safe within a really short period of interaction, being really comfortable talking about money made me a skilled fundraiser. This became the infrastructure that built the skills, that built the strategies that I still bring to my work now. I wrote a piece telling my story about my experience at the Circus Project, The article was called 7 Ways to Tell Stories Ethically. After publishing that, I started getting calls, I started getting opportunities. People wanted to work with me. I built this grit and this tenacity and couldn't say no to myself. I believe that our workplaces are the largest day-to-day institution that we all participate in. And when we change institutions, we can change governments. When we change governments, we can change culture. We can create better systems. We don't have to exploit people. And when we change the way institutions operate, we can change the way that society operates. From living on the street to telling my story to being a fundraiser, all of these experiences that I've built, and now this.